Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Maseches SOTAH Mem Hey. We begin 7 lines from the top of the Amud, right in the middle of the parsha of Egla Arufa. So they discovered a slain person on the road, killer unknown. What happens? Firstly, the members of the Sanhedrin, Hagadol, the Grand Supreme Court in Yerushalayim, who sit in the Lishkas Hagazes, special chamber in the Beis Hamikdash. This is the Sanhedrin with 71 members. So they'll come out to the location and measure. They'll do medida. It's a mitzvah to measure to the closest city. They will determine which one is the closest city. And we learned yesterday, even though it's clear and evident, look, it's right near the city, there is a mitzvah to be moeded, to determine by way of surveying, by way of measuring the distance, to decide this is the closest city, after which the members of that city will contribute and buy an egla arufa, a young calf. They do the arifa, they remove the head, and that addresses the situation. It's mechaper on the on this situation. Now, how many members of Sanhedrin are involved in measuring in medida? So yesterday we had 2 shittas. Rabbi Shimon says 3. Rabbi Yehuda says 5. Today we have a third shita. Masnis deloy Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. So first of all, the Mishnah that we learned yesterday, that only the members of Sanhedrin will have to go out and measure, is not going to work with Shitas Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, who maintains that aside from Sanhedrin, we require the Melech and the Kohen Gadol to be involved in that process as well. Sanya Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. So the pasuk tells us that V'yatzu zikeinecha v'sheiftecha, they will go out and measure. Zikeinecha is Sanhedrin. These are the members of Sanhedrin. When it says sheiftecha, it's in reference to somebody else. In fact, 2 people. Firstly, Zem Melech, going on the king. V'kohen Gadol, he as well must join in this process. How do we know sheiftecha is Melech? Tichsev Melech b'mishpat yamid aretz. So mishpat is synonymous with the Jewish king. What about the Kohen Gadol? Tichsev ubasal hakayanim halavi vela sheifet. That's the grand sheifet, referring to the Kohen Gadol. Ashiyeh b'yom mahim, he's going to be the head of the Kohanim, the Kohen Gadol. So according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, aside from Sanhedrin, the Kohen Gadol and Melech join in the medida. Iboilu, here comes a question. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, b'melech v'kohen gadol hu depalak, is he only disagreeing? He's adding the Melech and the Kohen Gadol to the Sanhedrin? Aval b'Sanhedrin. But in terms of the number of Sanhedrin members that need to go out, well, Ikar Rabbi Yehuda, Ikar Rabbi Shimon Svirle. He can be going either with Rabbi Yehuda that it's 5, or Rabbi Shimon that it's 3. He's not coming to change that number. He's just coming to add the Melech and Kohen Gadol. That's one way. Or b'Sanhedrin ami polag. He's disputing with respect to Sanhedrin as well. 3, 5 members, insufficient. Ad Ikar Kula Sanhedrin, we need the entire institution, all 71, to come out. So which way is it? Amar Rav Yosef Tashma, come and listen to the Raya, that in fact, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, the entire institution is involved. Matzon Zokin Mamri, Abe Pagi. So Zokin Mamri is a scholar by his own right, who's disagreeing with the ruling of the Sanhedrin. So there was some sort of question, and he ruled one way, and they disagreed, and he did not accept their ruling, and he goes back to town, his own hometown, and he continues promoting his view, his agenda. He's called a Zokin. Zokin is Zeshakana Chachma. Mamre, who's rebelling. He's going against the established traditional institution of Klal Yisrael, the Sanhedrin Agdola. Motzon Zokin Mamri Abi Pagi. Let's say he did not hear the ruling of the Sanhedrin while they were sitting in their official chamber. Rather, they were outside Abi Pagi, Rashi says, within the enclosure of Yerushalayim, somewhere else, not in their official sitting location. And they tell him, listen, this is the halacha. And he refuses to accept. V'himra alein, and he rebels. He goes against them. Would you say this is considered a rebellion and he's held accountable and he's put to death, etc.? Yes? No. Talmud the pasuk says, in reference to the Zaken Mamre, the pasuk speaks about going up to the Mokim, the known location in Yerushalayim, and the Lishkas HaGozes, in the Beis HaMikdash. And the place has an effect, a special environment in the Beis HaMikdash. That's where it happens. So he must listen to them. If their ruling was issued in the Mokim, in the specific Mokim, but if they relayed their opinion to him outside that Mokim, even though they were, officially sitting and ruling, he's not responsible for going against them. Okay, so that's the Bryce. Now let's analyze the Bryce, and we'll draw conclusions regarding our discussion with Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov and Egla Rufa. Okay, here we go. The Nafik come. First question is, how many Dayanim did this Zaken Mamre encounter outside of the Lishkas HaGozes? How many were there? Was it only part of the 71? Of course he's not responsible. Maybe the ones that are back inside the chamber agree with him and they'll convince the other one. That's not an indication. The fact that a couple of Dayanim that met him disagreed with him, it doesn't say much about the actual official position of the Bezdins. Of course he's not responsible. Apparently they all left their chamber and he met them all somewhere in Yerushalayim. And there they issued their opinion to him and he negated it. And that's why he's responsible. Now the question is, what is the entire Sanhedrin doing walking around in Yerushalayim? Was it just for a non-mitzvah purpose? They're not allowed to hold court elsewhere. Can the Sanhedrin just leave their chamber? The pasuk says, Shararech agan hasar al yechsar hamozek, pasuk in Shir Hashirim, and the drush is Shararech. Rashi says the navel, person's stomach. That's the Sanhedrin, which is sitting at the center of Eretz Yisrael in the Beis Hamikdash. Agan hasar, they positioned themselves in a semicircle so they can see each other during the proceedings. Sahar is a lashon of a moon, like a moon semicircle. Al yachsar hamazig, ensure that you're not missing mazig. Mazig is a third. Meziga is a third wine, which is diluted with 2/3 water. That's the way I used to. That was the recipe. So, the remes here is, the drush here is that shim nitzrach echad mehem latzis. If one of the Sanhedrin members need to leave, he must leave behind at least 23. If you have 23 Dayanim left behind, Keneged Sanhedrin Ketana, the number for a mini Sanhedrin. So that's a significant chunk, so to speak, portion of the Sanhedrin, enough to make from it a Sanhedrin Ketana, which is 23 Dayanim. That's a third of 71. It's actually a bit less than a third, but you can't go up to 24 because Bezdin can never be an equal number, right? And 25 is already too much. So we allow it with 23. Yaitse, then he can leave. He has permission to leave. But if he's going to leave behind less than 23, any Yaitse cannot leave the official chamber. So bottom line is, Sanhedrin never leaves their official mokim during, times that they're meant to be in session. So what is the Zaken Mamre doing, meeting them outside? Apparently they went out for a mitzvah purpose. What mitzvah purpose? Lamai, what for? The only thing we can come up with is to go do the measurements for the Egla Rufa. So why do we need the whole Sanhedrin? 3 Dayanim, 5 should be enough. Oh, Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. This must be Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov, our Tana. And apparently he requires the entire Sanhedrin to be involved. And that's Rav Yosef's raya to our question. According to Rabbi Yaakov, we need the Melech, Kohen Gadol, and the entire Sanhedrin. Amalei Abaye, how do you know? Maybe there's another reason why they left. There's another reason to expand the city of Yerushalayim, to expand the Azores, because it's not, as we learned, that the entire Sanhedrin is involved in that as well. Not for Eglah Rufa, they went for this. So perhaps that's the reason for their roaming around. But the Gemara concludes like Rav Yosef. Tanika Vased Rav Yosef. We do have a raya like Rav Yosef that indeed, according to Rabbi Yaakov, the entire 71 Dayanim are involved in measuring for the Eglah Rufa. Motz on Abeis Pagi, again the Zaken Mamre encounters the Bezdin outside, Vihimra Aleh, and he goes against them. Kigain, why were they outside? Shiyotzlo Medidas Eglah. There you go, they went to measure for the Eglah, or the Hoysev Al-Ir Al-Azars, or alternately, they went to expand the city boundaries in the Azores. So if the Zaken Mamre goes against them in that context, Yochal Taham Ra'asa Amra, do you consider that to be a rebellion? Talmud Leimer, no. If a come to Valisa, you need to go and meet them in their official place of court. It's the Makim that plays a role. So the bottom line is, who's involved in measuring by the Eglah Rufa to determine the closest city? We have Sanhedrin. How many of the Sanhedrin? According to Rabbi Shimon, 3 Dayanim. According to Rabbi Yehuda, 5 of the great Sanhedrin. According to Rabbi Yaakov, the entire Sanhedrin Agdola. In fact, we also need the Melech and the Kohen Gadol involved as well. And the Mishnah tells us, if the murdered fellow was found, Nimtza Taman, buried, Begal, beneath a pile of rocks, or Tola Be'ilo, hanging on a tree, that situation does not qualify for Eglah Rufa. It's only if the victim is to be found exposed on the Adama. So Taman, no good. Leima Masnissen, Rabbi Yehudi, perhaps our Mishnah, which disqualifies a buried victim, because it says, Ba'adama, which indicates open and exposed. Rabbi Yehudi Vila Rabbanan only follows Rabbi Yehuda's Shita and not the Rabbanan. What do we find there, Machlekes? The sign. So the Pasuk says a person's cutting his grain, bundling his wheat, and he forgets a bundle out in the field. Who gets it? The poor man. That's called shikha. Basada means exposed, open. Prat l'tomen. But if it's hidden, if it's covered, and he forgets it in that manner, that does not qualify for shikha. So basada means prat l'tomen di Rabbi Yehuda. V'chacham oimim just the opposite. Basada means l'rambas is a tomen, even though it's deep in the ground, it's covered. If he forgets it, it goes to the ani. Our Mishnah, which holds that ba'adama, you find the victim ba'adama, would mean only open and exposed as opposed to tamen, would seem to fit more with Rabbi Yehuda, who also excludes tamen from the word basad, and not the Rabbanan. No, even the Rabbanan would agree to our Mishnah. It's a different story. Look at the Psukim. And that allows us to draw different conclusions over here, by Eglah Rufa, where we disqualify the Taman, and as opposed to Shikha, where we include the Taman situation. Over here we look at the Psukim, and we conclude accordingly. And over there by Shikha. Minyan Dikra. It's based on the Psukim. Like this. You see, over here we have the Chsiv, Ki Motzei Chalom. They discover a man who was slain, a victim. Doesn't say where. Open, covered, exposed, buried, doesn't say. Heicha de Mishtakach. Wherever he's found, even Taman would qualify. The Pasuk adds the word Ba'adama. Why? What's Ba'adama coming to tell you? Prat l'tamen as opposed to covered. And that's why the Mishnah rules that out. V'asam as opposed to shikha. Minyan the crow. We also look at the psukim and we draw different conclusions. That's what the Pasuk says. Ki siktzar tzircha b'sodecha v'shachta omer b'sadeh. Right? So the Pasuk is mentioning a fellow who's harvesting. Ki siktzar tzircha. And next to it we have forgetting the bundle. We compare the two things. Shikha duma de katzer. We compare the shikha to the act of harvesting. Ma katzer begoli. Just like katzer, the stalks that he harvested are sitting out in the open, right? Af shikha begoli, likewise. The concept of shikha only applies to something which is open and exposed. So that's the starting point over there. The point is, everything has to be exposed. And therefore the pasuk comes back and tells us, Kosav achmona basade. The pasuk adds the word basade. The rabbis is hatam. Apparently here it's coming to switch it around. No, it doesn't have to be exposed, dafka, even if it's sitting and covered and unseen, and he forgets it in that manner, it's called shikha. So basically, it depends on your starting point. By egla rufa, the pasuk doesn't specify open, covered, so everything is included. And then the pasuk comes back and says ba'adama, revealed and exposed, as opposed to taman. But by shikha, the starting point is just the opposite. Shikha is like katzer, just like katzer is open and exposed. Likewise, shikha needs to be exposed. But then the pasuk comes back and says basada. What's the extra word basada coming to tell you? Even in the field, stuck inside and buried. So that's how we get to different conclusions. By shikha, then by egla rufa. So that's Shitas Rabbanan. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, for some reason, shikha must be exposed as well. If it's covered or buried, it doesn't qualify. We'll get to that in a minute. He has a different, system of drasha. Right? Actually, we had it before. Rabbi Yehuda says that the word basada is prat lataman. Instead of l'rabis is hataman, it's coming to be mamai, to rule out something which is covered and concealed. Asks the Gemara, well then we have a shaila on Rabbi Yehuda. Why does Rabbi Yehuda need that extra word basada to rule out taman? Forget about basada. The mere fact that the pasuk mentioned shikha next to katzer is exposed, so shikha needs to be exposed. Barring another pasuk, another drasha, we would just leave it at that. Basically, the default position is it needs to be open and exposed. So why does Rabbi Yehuda need another drasha to include something which is covered? To exclude something which is covered? Why can Rabbi Yehuda learn that needs to be open and seen from the mere fact that the pasuk compares shikha to katzer, which is begali? And you're right. We don't need an extra pasuk to be mamayit tomen. That's the default position in the pasuk. That's the starting point. So why then does the pasuk say? What's the basada coming to tell you? If not a taman related halacha, if it's not needed for that, what is it for? Maybe it's coming to tell you something else. It's coming to tell you that not only if he forgets a bundle which has been bundled up is it considered shikha, even if he forgets to cut some wheat there. Kama means standing wheat. He leaves a corner out by mistake. He overlooks a piece of kama. That section constitutes shikha. And we learn that from the word basada. Pasuk says, v'shachachta omer, so you can forget a bundle. That's one form of shikha. And we darshan v'shachachta omer basada. V'shachachta part of the sada as well. Now the question is, according to the Rabbanon, who have applied the word of basada to include taman, so now it's unavailable for shikchas kama. Rabbanon shikchas kama menalu. How do they know that if it overlooks a section of grain, a section of stalks, it's considered shikha? We have another pasuk for that. Nafku, they learned that from the other part of the pasuk. Mechi siktzor tzircha bisadecha v'shachachta em v'sada. V'sadecha is extra. So we darshan bisadecha v'shachachta. You forgot part of the sada, part of the standing grain. And that's also considered shikha. Now, what does Rabbi Yehuda do with this pasuk, which is extra according to him, because this halacha he has already learned from the other pasuk? For Rabbi Yehuda, it's needed for the other halacha. Ravo Amar Balazar. Amar Ravo Amar Balazar. Shikha is limited to your own field. Prat, as opposed to let's say the wind blew, floated some of his bundles into his neighbor's field, and he left them there, he forgot them there. That's not called shikha. Shikha is limited to one's own property, and that's learned from besadecha. It's limited to your field. No, v'rabbanan, who have already used this pasuk for the other halacha. How do they know that it's limited to your territory? Besadeh. It could have said sadeh. Besadecha. Why did it say sadecha? Yours. Rabbi Yehuda, besadeh, besadecha. The difference between sadeh and sadecha le'mashmala. He doesn't focus on that. Therefore, he doesn't make a drasha from that. So, if we have to summarize this little piece of Gemara, we have a pasuk. Ki tzircha besadecha v'shachachta omer basadeh. So the Gemara tells us that according to all Shittas, Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbana, the default position here is Begali. Torah is indicating to us that we're speaking about things that are revealed and seen and exposed and open, uncovered, because we have Ktsir and we have Shikha. Ktsir is Begali, likewise Shikha. However, Rabbanan say, Taman is also considered Shikha because of the word Basada. What does Rabbi Yehuda do with the word Basada? Because according to him, Taman is not Shikha. So according to him, we use basada for shikchas kama, if he forgets to cut some grain. Rabbanan learned that from besadecha v'shachachta. Rabbi Yehuda says, well, besadecha, that's to tell you that it doesn't work if it's in your neighbor's field. And the Rabbanan say, okay, that can be learned from the chaf, besadecha. But ultimately, when it comes to egla rufa, all agree that it only qualifies if the victim is ba'adama, open and exposed. By Rabbi Yirmiyah, here comes an interesting shaila presented by Rabbi Yirmiyah, who is accustomed to asking very technical questions throughout Shas. Suppose he left behind some bundles in his own field. Problem, they're not sitting on the actual ground, they're floating, they're sort of wind put them onto a stone or onto something. They're not actually on the ground itself. Mahu. Is that considered shikha? It's not on the field. It's in the airspace. Mahu. Aver sada kasada dami. Do we say the airspace is considered like the field itself? And it's called bisada? Or lav kasada dami? Or is it not considered like the field itself? And there's no shikha. Amalei Rav Kahana Rav Papi. Amri lo some say Rav Kahana Rav Zvit. Tifshe lei. I can bring an interesting raya to this question. Mid Rabbivo, Amar Belezer, the halacha that we had a minute ago. The Amar, he tells us like this. Prat, we learn from the pasuk that in the following scenario there is no shikha. The wind came and blew some of his bundles and floated them. And had them land on something, on top of something in his neighbor's field. There's no shikha. Okay, that's what the Gemara figures at this point. That we're speaking that it has landed on top of something, an item in his friend's field. And we say it's not shikha. So we can make a diak. It's only because it's sitting in your neighbor's field. Then we say there's no shikha. But if it's in your own field, it's considered shikha, despite the fact that it's sitting on top of something else and not on the actual ground itself. Asks the Gemara, 1 second, according to your way of reasoning, that was speaking that it was blown into his neighbor's field and it's sitting on top of something else. If it's sitting in his neighbor's field, only if it's floated on top of something else, then it's not shikha munachan. If it's actually sitting on his neighbor's ground, there's no exception there. There's no exemption. It is shikha. How could that be? I thought we needed it to be in your own field, and it's in his neighbor's field. Rather, the truth is that if it's sitting in your neighbor's field, that's not shikha, even if it's actually sitting on the ground. When the fact that we mentioned the word safu, it was floated, and that's not what it means. It doesn't mean that it's actually positioned on something else. It's sitting on the ground in your neighbor's field, but itself would just mean that that's the only way it got there. It was floated. It was blown there by the wind. But of course, today it's sitting on the ground, and it's still not shikha because it's not in your field. So we're not speaking about double-deckers and positionings and floatings, and therefore has no relevance to our question. Toshma, here comes another right to our question, which was, what happens if he forgets a bundle in his own field, but it's not sitting on the ground itself, rather on something else? The Mishnah says, a farmer was collecting his bundles. He picked up a bundle to take it home, and then he just put it down. He put it down on another bundle, and he forgot it. He left it there. Is that considered shikha? So now we have two bundles left behind. The bottom one, which is supporting the upper one. The lower one is considered shikha. The elyon ain't a shikha, but the upper one is not. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Shimon, they both are not. Shneim einon shikha. Why? The bottom one, well, he's covered. He's taman. There's no shikha by taman. The upper one is not either shikha because it's floating. It's not positioned on the ground. End of discussion. Says the Gemara, Ad kan le pliki. It would seem that this discussion is only ela b'tachton, regarding the status of the bottom one. Is it considered taman? Is taman potter? Okay, that's a discussion. But it's clear that all shittas, Tanakama and Reb Shimon, will concur regarding the upper one. It's not shikha. Why? Oh, apparently because it's not sitting on the ground. And that's a right to our question. Airspace doesn't count. No, says the Gemara, that's not the reason. Shani Hassam, the reason there is totally different. It's not a matter of positioning. Rather, keep in mind, this farmer already picked up that bundle. He took possession of it. He's taking it home. It's his. And therefore, even if he dropped it and left it there, it can no longer qualify as shikha. Shikha means while you're collecting it, the first time you left it, you dropped it. But if you already collected, it's yours. You're on the way home, and then you stop off and you put it down and leave it behind. That's not called shikha. So again, it has no connection to our question of double-decker and floating. If that's the reason for this halacha, so why does he present the halacha as being a bundle on top of another bundle? Why is that relevant to the halacha? It's a question of possession, not a question of position. This halacha would apply even if it's sitting on the floor, because you already took possession. And you're 100% right. The fact that it's positioned on top of the other one doesn't really have relevance to the halacha. Why did he mention it? Why did he describe it as such? One on top of the other. Mishum tachton. It was meant to bring out the other halacha regarding the status of the lower one, to tell you that it's considered taman or not. That was the machlekes. But regarding the upper one, the reason why it's not shikha is unrelated to its position. Rather, it's because he was already machzik. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? The Mishnah just explained to us, right? The reason why the elyon, the upper one, is not shikha, ipnei shehut saf. That's what the Brisa says, which sounds like it's a matter of positioning because it's floating. It's not firmly on the ground, and you're telling me it's unrelated to that reason. Answers the Gemara, Ema will revise ipnei shehut kitzaf. It's like floating, which means to say that the reason why he's potter from shikha on that bundle is because he was machzik. And Rashi says, Ki'ilu haya eidenu tzaf me'al karka u'munach beyadi. The point is not that it's positioned on top. The point is that it's as though it's floating, meaning it's not on the ground, it's in his hand, so to speak. He already took it. It's like unrelated to the farm, to the SOTAH. It's in his possession. Continues the Gemara. Amar Abaye. Abaye one day made this announcement. Hareini keben azai. I have such clarity, and I'm able to Baruch Hashem respond to anybody who has any questions. Like compared to Ben Azai, B'Shukei Tveria, who used to say his shiurim out in the streets of Tveria with such clarity and full command of the Torah. So anybody has any questions, I'm ready. So this Chacham took on the challenge. He says, La'abai, I have a question for you. An Egla Rufa question. So we speak about Taman not working. It has to be ba'adama. It can't be hung up on a tree. The mace has to be ba'adama. What about shnei chalolim? Zeh al gab zeh. You find two victims, one on top of the other. Mehechanu moeded. Now they're offset. One is pulled this way a bit, one is pulled this way a bit. Now the question is, you want to measure, find the closest city. Which victim will you measure from? Meichanu moeded. So what's the question? Min b'minay. This is a classic case of two items of the same type. Min b'minay. Two mason, right? Sitting on top of each other. Have a taman. The fact that the lower one is covered by the upper one, is that considered hidden and concealed and buried? Maybe yeah, maybe not, because he's not really buried, with another material. He's not buried under stones. He's buried under something of the same material. Min b'mina, perhaps that's not considered taman, and therefore you can measure from the lower mace. He qualifies for egla roof. That's one question, and there's a question regarding the upper one as well. Does he qualify or not? Is he considered ba'adama, resting on the ground, or not? Maybe he's considered floating in the air because he's on top of another mace. Or shall we say that it's not called saf, it's not called floating, because the mace beneath him does not create a chatzitza between himself and the ground. It's as though he's positioned on the ground itself. That you can measure from the upper one, although the lower one doesn't qualify because he's called taman beneath the upper one, but the upper one is considered ba'adama because relative to himself he's firmly on the ground. That's one way to look at it. Or you can say, no, the upper one doesn't qualify because he's floating on top of something else. He's not firmly on the ground. And conversely, you can say the bottom one is not considered buried because he's just being covered by something of the same type. And you can consider the bottom victim as qualifying for egla rufa. Another way to look at it is, both not. The bottom one is covered, the upper one is floating. You can't measure not from the bottom or from the upper one. Nobody qualifies. And Rashi says, of course, we can go the other way too. They both qualify. He's on the ground, he's on the ground. And then you're moeded from both of them. You have to bring two eglarufas. So that was the question posed to Abaye on in his moment of clarity. Amar le Tanisos. He says, look, I have a raya from a brisa, at least to one of your questions regarding whether taman is applicable here. This was the brisa we just learned. Tesefta. So the farmer grabbed a bundle on his way home, placed it on the other bundle and forgot it. So the bottom one is considered shikha, but not the upper one. Rabbi Shimon, they're both not shikha. You know why? Like we explained before, the bottom one is buried, the other one, and the upper one is not firmly on the ground, it's floating. End of discussion. Now, Savrua. Now, the Bnei HaYeshiva who were trying to explain what Abaye was trying to bring from this brisa. Basically, what's the raya from this brisa to our question of min b'minoi, whether it's taman. So here you have a similar situation. A bundle, atop another bundle, min b'minoi. Okay? So, the Hani Tanoi, Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, both of these Tanoim that we just mentioned, Tanakam and Rabbi Shimon Yehuda, both are on Rabbi Yehuda's track. What's Rabbi Yehuda's track? The Omar Besada, he learns from the word Besada Prat Taman. Taman does not qualify for Shikha. Okay, so that's first of all. We're working with that assumption. Taman is Pater. So what's the Machlekes? What's the Machlekes based on? Whether or not to consider the lower bundle as hidden, as buried, as Taman. Right? Tanakama says it's not called Taman, and therefore it is Shikha. Whereas Rabbi Shimon Yehuda says, well, it's not shikha because it is taman. What does that dispute depend on? I have a question, perhaps. Perhaps the machlekes depends on our very question. The Mar Savar min b'mini have a taman. Rabbi Shimon Yehuda holds a bundle on top of another bundle makes the bottom one taman, and therefore it's not shikha. Or Mar Savar have a taman. Tanakama says no, min b'mini is not taman because he's covered by something of his own type. That's not considered buried. So our shaila is really dependent on this machlekes. Loi, not necessarily. Says the Gemara, Ikra Rabbi Yehuda Svirlu, if in fact both these opinions would follow Rabbi Yehuda, that what? Something buried, something covered, is not considered shikha. If that were so, then the kuli yalma min b'mina of a taman, perhaps everybody would agree that the bottom one is not shikha, it's taman, despite the fact that it's covered with something of its own ilk. Rather, the machlekes here is going to go back to that fundamental shaila, that machlekes, whether or not taman qualifies for shikha. So back to the basic shaila. The Rabbanon, the Shitas Rabbanon here, the Tanakama, who says that the lower bundle is considered shikha, ki Rabbanon. He holds a Shitas Rabbanon, that even though it's buried, yes, it is buried, min b'minay makes it taman, but it's still shikha because shikha can work even by taman. But Rab Shimon Yehuda, he holds ki Rab Yehuda, that what? When it's buried, it's not shikha. So bottom line is, perhaps this question of whether min b'mina makes taman is not really a machlekes. Everybody would hold perhaps it is taman. The question is that in itself, whether taman is shikha. Yach, if that were so, my iri al gabi chaveri. If it's a fundamental basic question of whether or not shikha applies by taman, why does the Brisa discuss a case where it's one bundle on top of the other? Why speak about two bundles which are specifically min b'minai? If that's not the ikra point of the Brisa, it's just a very elementary question of taman. So then speak about a typical case where your bundle is covered with afar and tzreiros, dirt or pebbles. And the chiddush would be that even if it's covered, really buried with that type of material, it's still considered shikha according to one shita. I feel above it, in a chanami, you're right. We could have cited that example. Why didn't we? Why did we specifically mention two bundles? It was to highlight Rabbi Yehuda's power, Rabbi Yehuda's shita, the amar afilu min b'min avataman. That even if it's covered by something of its own type, one bundle covered by the other, even that's considered taman, it does not qualify for shikha. So bottom line is we had a shaila regarding a bundle which is up in the air, we're not sure what happens there. A bundle which is covered with another bundle, perhaps it's a machlekes, perhaps all agree it's called taman. We didn't really get clarity on that. Okay, so back to Egla Rufa. Tana Rabban. Ki yimatzei chalal ba'adama. If a chalal, one who was slain, is to be discovered ba'adama, then we try to figure out, lo yinoida miyiko, nobody comes forward, then the closest city is responsible, they bring the Egla Rufa. Tana Rabbanan, from the word chalal we learn, v'lei chanuk. He must have been killed, Rashi says, with a barzel, with a metal, like a cherev, like a sword. The Meiri says, as opposed to have been choked, because we want it to be apparent that he was murdered by somebody, and not chas v'shalom self-inflicted. The word chalal also tells us v'lei mefarper. You have to discover him dead as opposed to on the verge of death. Even if he dies later, it doesn't qualify. That's the halach. From the word ba'adama, we learn v'lei taman, begal, as opposed to buried beneath a pile of stones. Noifel tells us v'lei tolu b'ilan, lying on the ground as opposed to hung on a tree. From the word basada, we learn v'lei tzaf al pnei hamayim, as opposed to one floating on water. So we have all these miyutim. Rabbi Lezer Ayman Bekulan, in all these cases, it qualifies as long as he's been killed. Im haya chalal, if he was killed, as opposed to we said choked, that wouldn't qualify. But otherwise, it would qualify despite the fact that it's tzaf or tamun or tolei mefarper, doesn't matter. Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Amrullah, the Chachamim responded to Rabbi Lezer. Yata, wouldn't you agree? Shem hayachanak umotol ba'ashpa she'ein orphan. Don't you agree with us that if he's been choked and lying in the ashpa and the dirt, ein orphan, there's no arifa? It doesn't qualify. Why? Alma chalal v'lechanak. Apparently, you also agree to our interpretation. The chalal means killed outright, as opposed to chanak. Chanami here as well. The other words tell us the other things. Ba'adama tells us taman megal, as opposed to buried. The word Neifel, V'loi Talav Ilan. The word Basada teaches us, V'loi Tzafaf Ne'amai, Al Gabi Amayim. Why don't you agree with the other things? The answer is Rabbi Lezer, Cholol Yisir Ksiv. He doesn't have drashas from those psukim, from those words. Rather, only Cholol. Because that's an extra word. We find Ki Matzah Cholol once, we find it again. The next pasuk, V'ya'ir Hakrev Ela Cholol. So we have extra Cholol to tell us that Dafka Cholol as opposed to Chanuk. So that he agrees, but he doesn't agree with the other stipulations. The Mishnah tells us, Nimtza Samach L'Sfar, if the mace was discovered right near the boundary of Eretz Yisrael, near where the Gentiles live, or near a city, which is mostly Evdei Kechavim, it's not a surprise. Goyim, they're always involved in Ritzicha. It doesn't qualify for Egla Rufa. The pasuk says it's a shock. It's been discovered in shock, as opposed to these locations where unfortunately it's common. Prat Lamatze, as opposed to something which is common. If he's near the city without a bezin, then they don't bring the Egla Rufa. Because we know that the city's Zikanim, the Sanhedrin, are involved in bringing the Egla Rufa. There's no Zikanim, there's no bezin, then they don't participate. But then the Mishnah continues, Ein moidedin ela le'ir sheyesh ba bezin. So the first the Mishnah says that if he's near a city without a bezin, then we don't do it. Right? But then the Mishnah says, Ein moidedin ela le'ir sheyesh ba bezin. It's sort of a repetition. You need to have a bezin. Why does the Mishnah have to repeat itself? Pshita, of course, given the Tana, le'ir sheyesh ba bezin. Once you tell me that you don't do medida to a city without a bezin, it doesn't qualify, then of course I understand. I know my own. It can only measure to the city with a bezin. So what's the chiddush? There's a great chiddush, isn't there? Hakamashman, the Mishnah is teaching us Kedesanya as per the following price. Minayin, how do we know? Shem nimtza samach le'ir she'em ba bezin. Let's say the chalal was found in close proximity to a city without a bezin. What do we do? Shamanich noisa, so we ignore that city. And we do medida to the closest city with a bezin, despite the fact that geographically it's further than this city. It doesn't matter. That city is not part of the equation. That's a big chiddush. How do we know that? The word ha'ir is extra because we already know it's the elders of that city. Midkol Malkim is coming to teach us, even though the city is not the closest city, but it is the closest with a bezin, that city is incorporated into the process. Continues the Mishnah. What if you find it right in the middle? You measure to city A, 50 miles. City B, exactly 50 miles. Not a hair's breadth apart. Exactly right on the middle. Both cities need to bring Egla Rufa. Yerushalayim is never included in this process. Suppose the Chalal's body was found in one location, his Roish a bit farther away. What do? We bring the Roish to the Guf. So the Guf is the Ikar. Just the opposite. We bring the Guf to the Roish, that's the Ikar. We find a Chalal. We want to measure the closest city. From where, at what point on that body do we begin the Medida? Rabbi Lezer Omer mitaburi, from his stomach. Rabbi Kiva Omer from his nose. Rabbi Lezer Omer makam shenasa cholol mitzavari, from his neck, where typically he becomes a cholol by way of being hit by a sword. My time with the Rabbi Lezer that if he's found right in the middle of two cities, between two cities, both are involved. Says the Merkah Savar Eshel Tzamtzam. Rabbi Lezer holds that it's not a mistake. It can work. It can happen that the measurement is exactly as such, pinked in the middle. It's not like we're hallucinating or making a mistake, because otherwise, Rashi says, you would have to make a Tanai. only one egla arufa would be brought. Both cities, would contribute, with a condition. If it's ours, then you're giving us your part. If it's yours, we're allowing you to have our part. No, Rav Lezer holds efshel tzamtzum. It can be so that they are very, very accurate in their measurements, and in fact, it's exactly squarely in the middle. Ukroiva, even though the pasuk speaks about the Ir HaKroiva, the one city which is close, I feel Kroiva is just a concept. The close city. You can have many close cities, and they're all responsible. However, Yerushalayim is not included. In Yerushalayim, if you have Agla Rufa, you find a Chala near Yerushalayim, there's no Agla Rufa, my taima, Dama Kro L'Rishta. The pasuk says when you find the Chalal, Ba'adama Asher Hashem Aleikecha Nois L'Chal L'Rishta, the land which was given to you as an inheritance. That does not include Yerushalayim, because we hold Yerushalayim was not divided amongst the tribes. It was left as sort of a communal territory, and therefore it's not called L'Rishta, and there's no Egla Rufa. What happens if Nimtza Reisha b'makam echad, v'gufa b'makam achar? Head was found here, body was found here. Rabbi Lezer says, you bring the Reish to the guf. Rabbi Akiva says the opposite. But Ma'akim Ifligi, what's the point of what are they discussing here? Ilay Malini Medida. Is it a question of measurements? Kamifligi, that's the machlekes. Where are we meant to start measuring? So one shita says, bring the head to the body, that's where we start, from the body, and the other one says, no, the body to the head is the starting point. Is that the discussion here? Medida? No, it can't be. Because that's the next machlekes in the Mishnah. Hamilitani Seifa. Well, the Mishnah continues. I know you might didn't. What's the starting point of Medida in a person's body? So Rabbi Lezer says stomach, or Akiva says nostrils, right? So apparently the first discussion is unrelated to measuring. Why would you have the same discussion over and over again? Right? Because the next discussion is about where to measure from. What's the focal point of a person's body, a person's life? His stomach, which provides him with nourishment and sustenance on a physical plane, or is it Rakiva says michaytma, his nose, his nostrils, which represents his spirit, right? And that's the critical part of the guf. And that's where you measure from. That's where he became a chalal from, right, so to speak. So that's the discussion over there. So what's the point of the first discussion? You find the guf and the rosh in different locations. What are you meant to do? Bring the guf to the rosh and measure from the rosh, because that's the focal point? Or the opposite? Well, that's been discussed in the next machlekes. So this must be a totally different topic. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, you're right. This machlekes pertains to a totally different topic. Yehoshua made 10 conditions with Klal Yisrael upon entering Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara Bava Kama Pei Aleph discusses all 10, one of which is called Meis Mitzvah. There's an abandoned mace in Eretz Yisrael. He acquires rights, so to speak, to be buried in that place, in that location. So now in our Mishnah, we have a case where we don't know. Location is sort of hazy, because part of him is here, part of him is there. And that's the point of discussion. L'koivrei. You find a chalal out in the street, right? Where do you bury him? Right there, unless he's sitting on the thoroughfare. Okay, all kinds of halachas. Perhaps you move him over to the side, but in concept, if he's not obstructing traffic, he has a schus to be buried in his location. That's if he's intact. But what if his head is here and the body here? What's considered the makom of the mace? According to Rabbi Lezer, we bring the head to the guf, and that's where we bury. Rabbi Kiva, just the opposite. Guf, etzel roish. What's the point of machlekes here? What's the reason for this machlekes? Mar sabar guve beduchtei nafel. Rabbi Lezer holds, look, when he was killed, his body dropped right there. That's his makom. Reisha, his head did not even nafel. It rolled away. So that's not really his real location. Bring the head back. Umar sabar, Rabbi Kiva holds just the opposite. Most times it goes the other way. Reisha echad nafel. His head falls on site. Gufu the rod vazal, but his body just keeps on going, keeps on running, and that's why it's not really the makom of misa. So you bring the body back and you bury him here. Then comes the next discussion. You have a chalal intact. Where do we measure from? What's the makim which is considered the source of his chiyus, from which he became a chalal when he was killed? So once again, we have a similar machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda says his mid part, mitiburay, and Rabbi Akiva says chaytmei. What's the svara of this machlekes? Mar savar ike chiyusa ba'pei. Rabbi Akiva holds his life is expressed in his nostrils, in his breath, in his spirit. Or Mar savar ike chiyusa b'tiburei. The ikar chiyus is related to his intestines, internals, his systems, his stomach. Perhaps this machlekes matches up with a different machlekes on a similar topic. What's the focal point of a person's life? When an unborn child is formed, what's the starting point? It starts from his head area. As the pasuk says, inside my mother, ata goizi. And what does goizi mean? It relates to the head area. Rashi says it relates to the hair on one's head. Bottom line, Roish is the starting point of a person's creation. Starting point is his stomach, which then sprouts in all directions, and he develops. So is it head? Is it stomach? Same discussion now in Mishnah. Says the Gemara, Afilu Tema B'Shol, our two Tanaim and our Mishnah regarding Eglal Rufa could be following Abashol Shita. Ad kam like Amar B'Shol, Elolini Yatzira, because Rabbi Shol is only speaking regarding creation. What's the starting point of creation? Dechem Mitzar Vlad. When the Vlad is formed, he says it's Mimitzi Isei Mitzar. Starting point is the midsection. Aval Ini Chayusa. That's one discussion. But once he's fully developed, fully grown, regarding Chiyusa, now we have to define the focal point of his existence today. Not what was when he was being created, being formed. We have a full person today. Where's the Ikar Chiyus? The Kuli Alma Ba'apei. Perhaps everybody would agree that it's related to his nostrils. Ba'apehu Dechsiv, as the Pasuk says, Kol Asher Nishmas Ruach Chaim Ba'apav. Pasuk relates to the apav, nostril area, as an expression of life. So bottom line, we have two separate discussions. One is, how does Hashem form a fetus? Is it from the head or from the midsection? That's one discussion. Now once we have a full person, what's the focal point of his chiyus? And that pertains to Eglal Rufa. One says mitiburay, one says michaytmei. Rabbi Yaakov says, no, from the neck area. That's where you begin measuring. Makim shenasa cholo mitzavari. My time the Rabbi Yaakov. Why? Why does Rabbi Yaakov say makim shenasa cholo mitzavari? Because the pasuk says, "Lo says oisach al tzavari chalali rishoyim." So we see that the concept of being chalal relates to the savar, which is the easiest way to kill a person, through a sword on his neck. So that's where chalal relates to, and that's why the medida takes place from that place. Okay, let's do a brief chazar on today's daf. We find a chalal ba'adama. Sanhedrin go out to do the medida to determine the closest city. How many of the Sanhedrin? Rav Shimon says 3 dayanim. Rabbi Yehuda says 5. And according to Rabbi Yaakov, that's the conclusion. We have the entire Sanhedrin involved. What if it's tamun, hidden, buried? By Eglal Rufa, it doesn't qualify. Well, we've got to remember, we have Rabbi Lezer and Amid Beis who says even by tamun, there is an Eglal Rufa. Regarding a shikha, right, the bundle out in the field, if it's tamun, we have a machlekes, according to Rabban, even by tamun, it constitutes shikha. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it does not. We had a discussion regarding tamun and saf by min b'minoi. The pasuk says kimatzi chalal ba'adama, etc., etc. We learn chalal is killed in a way that's apparent that he's a victim of a murderer. Rashi says b'kli barzel kein cherev, as opposed to chanuk, as opposed to mefarper, tamun, toli, and sof. According to Rabbi Lezer, all those qualify as well. But by chanuk, he disagrees that it does not. If it's near the Gentiles, karev, l'sfar, or li'ir, she'esh ba'akum, roi v'akum, samaguris, there is no egla arufa. We do the medida to the closest city with a bezdin, even though it's not really the closest city. found between two cities, both bring an Eglah Rufa, Yerushalayim does not. Emes mitzvah is koinim mekaimai. What if the head is here and the body is there? We have a machlekes, where he's buried. And regarding where to be moided from in the person, we have either taburoi, chaytmai, or makom shenasa cholom mitzavarei. B'suras tovus to all of us, atzlacha Rabbah.